Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Never Miss a Monday podcast. I am your host, Stacey Garcia, and I'm so glad that you are here with me today. And I'm so excited to announce another amazing project that I've been working on. And as you all know, I started my Monday Momentum membership, which has been so much fun. If you are not a part of it yet, it is not too late. And if you want more information on that, check out my show notes. I have something live in person, which is the most amazing form of connection. And I'm just so excited to be working with my dear friend Elise Cohen. We are both going to be co-hosting a Women's Wellness Day retreat on February 22nd, 2022. There is no coincidence in those numbers. And it's really kind of a perfect day to celebrate the end of the month of love and also the very beginning of the year of the horse. So it's going to be quite a powerful day with quite some powerful people. One of them is actually here in the studio today, and I'm beyond thrilled to welcome back my dear friend and mentor, Nicola Salter. If you don't remember her, she is an international mindset mentor and transformation coach who helps women rediscover their purpose, overcome limiting beliefs, and build empowered, fulfilling lives and businesses. She is an author of the brand new book right behind me, if you're watching, Finding Your Queen. She is a speaker and host of your Unique Brilliance podcast. Nicola, welcome. I am so happy to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacey. I'm so happy to be here and excited about your event coming up too, and the Year of the Horse. Thank goodness. I can't wait for this to come. It's
Yes.
about time.
It is about time. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm like ready for the year of the snake to end and bring in the year of the horse. I think we're all ready for this.
Yeah.
So, Nicola, you've mentored and guided women for over 30 years. What patterns were you seeing that made you say it is time for this book?
Yeah. Thank you. Really good question, Stacey. I think it was basically my shock that women, as confident as they are at work and what they're accomplishing, are still forgetting parts of themselves, have become disconnected from their values and trying to fit into a paradigm that's been created by men and society, and always trying to fit in, accomplish, be productive, but don't have that sense of empowerment. And I realized very quickly in the last 2 years that it was important for me to put something down in writing based on my coaching, based on my self-care methods, but also in a way to help women start claiming their brilliance.
Mm.
Um, Noticing that they are carrying more emotionally now than they've ever done before, and that it was time for them to move away, help them move away from this need to be perfect and
Mhm.
to come into alignment with who they really are, what they want, what's important to them, and creating more of a balance in their life. So the book really is a woman's guide to living raw and being flawed and being brilliant and being okay with that and stepping outside of society's needs for them to be perfect.
That's a beautiful answer and a beautiful message for us all. And it really made me think, if I could go back in time, if we could all go back in time to the day that someone of a certain power made us feel like we shouldn't be trusting our intuition and our voice, when that shift actually happened, and how we can help other generations from breaking
Yeah.
through that as well. So, one of the themes that you highlight is that women are tired. They're tired of
Yeah.
perfection, tired of doing it all. In your experience, what's the root of this collective burnout?
I do feel it's society's expectations and women for the most part being so
Mhm,
diligent in wanting to be the best that they can be.
mhm,
And this isn't a criticism of women. This is actually a celebration of women doing as much as they can to grow and transform. However, the problem comes when they're not resting, they're not doing self-care, and there's just this constant upward project trajectory of work, 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 production, production, accomplishment, and not
Mhm.
resting.
Mhm.
And this is where it gets difficult because when we're in burnout, then we get self-doubting, we get more fearful, we get overwhelmed when we don't take that time for taking a break. So um, I do feel that collectively we've done really well
Mhm.
at becoming out in the work field and really empowering ourselves to be on purpose and driven, and that we're important and our voice counts. But I think we've gone too far now. And it's time to it's not pulling back, it's just rebalancing and realigning with what it is that we do now want to move forward with. So teaching the next generation, look, you don't need to overwork. You can work differently.
Right. No, absolutely. I so agree with that. You also mentioned in the book that the pandemic changed everything for women. What shifts did you notice in how women view identity, relationships, and choosing a life on their own terms?
I think the pandemic changed, firstly, that we all realized that we could work more
Mhm.
from home and be productive from home and still have our community and work and do the things that are important to us and have more
Mhm.
time with the family. So I think
Mhm.
that was a very positive benefit. If you can say the pandemic was positive, because obviously for many it wasn't, sadly. However, um, the other side of the coin showed that women then worked harder because
Mhm.
they were running the home, still doing all their chores. Um, the expectation of caretaking fell on their shoulders, perhaps more than on the man's shoulders in most cases. And I think that was a bit of a downside for them
Mhm.
because it almost took them back a few steps of the childcare, you know, being at home, but then also having to work rather than being able to step outside and go to the office. Um, I think that was detrimental for them. So we almost took a step back during the time of COVID.
I feel like you just looked into my past from 6 years ago because it's so true. I mean, I was working at the gym at that time and we immediately went on Zoom. And I am still training some women on Zoom that were
Mm,
from those days. And it did make me realize how much work I can do from home and how much more
mhm.
flexibility I could have. But it also, I remember so much frustration because I felt all the childcare also kind of was so heavy on my shoulders. So it was this yin yang, if you will, of all of this beauty that was coming out of such a dark time, but so much hardship as well. So I am right with you in all of that. Um, do you feel right now in this moment that more women are starting and more willing to walk away from old thought beliefs and what is driving that courage?
I think so. I mean, I'm beginning to see that women are tired of feeling overwhelmed and burnt out and exhausted. And I feel that sometimes we have to go through this discombobulation, this sense that we're failing, which we're not. We're actually graduating to that next level of who we are. And it takes a breakdown of systems, of feeling overwhelmed
Mm,
to make change. I wish it wasn't like that, but that's how we operate. And women are now saying, okay, enough is enough. I've been successful in my own field or career, recognizing perhaps that they've pushed too hard and that we don't need to be like men. We don't have to fit into that paradigm that men have created where men went out to work. They didn't take care of their homes. They just focused on work. Whereas women are multi-skilled and tend to be able to do a great deal of that. And I think they're coming to a point where their
mm,
wiser selves, that raw self within them is waking up, and that's why I wrote the book. Finding Your Queen is about waking up. It's the
mhm,
motivational pieces that make us wake up and become more self-aware.
mm,
And also and also stay connected with our feminine wisdom. So even in the book, I write about the moon cycles and the wisdom of the moon
Mhm.
cycles and our ancestors, the importance of our ancestors and learning from our female ancestors. So the queen self, I think, is waking up. And when we find our why, when we find our why, I think this is bigger than our what if. When we say, right, enough is enough, what's my why? What's my purpose here? It becomes easier to make that change.
Right. No, absolutely. And I do feel like women are stepping a little bit more away from feeling like putting so much pressure on them is success. I think we've redefined success at this stage, and finding your queen isn't about hustle, ambition, or chasing millions. It's about fulfillment and sovereignty. So how do you
Mhm.
personally define success right now?
Me personally, yeah,
Yeah.
for me, it's becoming sovereign in my purpose. Why am I here? What am I here to do? What fulfills me? And not minding what others might think or say.
Yeah. I mean, I wish for us all to get to that level, honestly. I think that's so hard for so many and not natural, but I think that's beautiful. For women who have built an identity around achievement or being the strong one, where should they begin when they realize that they've kind of lost themselves along the way?
I mean, I think that being on your own side is really important. I think it's a great
Mhm.
question. Reconnecting with what is important to you. It's not, let's not look at it that you got lost on the way. Perhaps you were misaligned
Mm.
with society's beliefs and you aligned yourself to what was and measured yourself by what was going on at the time. So there was a misalignment and reconnecting to parts of yourself that you've forgotten is actually fun.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
discovery process. And
Mhm.
it means just taking a bit more time for yourself during the day. And rather than pushing,
Mhm.
I didn't get all these things done on my list, for example. It's like, okay, I didn't get them done on my list. I'll wait till tomorrow, perhaps for one of them. And being more discerning in what you're setting yourself up for on a daily basis and more realistic. And within that time is self care. It's a 15-minute walk or it's
Mhm.
a tea break for 10 minutes. It's really making sure you plug in some times where you can just be reflective and be. You don't always have to be doing to be successful. And in fact, one of my things is rest is productive.
Yes. It is incredibly productive, and for some reason, I feel like our country is so backwards on that. So many other countries, as you know, you go and
Yeah.
doors are closed down in the middle of day because everyone goes home and relaxes and rests, and that's part of their culture. Here, it's almost frowned upon to rest, but rest is so productive, and I couldn't agree with you more. So, what does it actually look like to stop leading like a man, and how can women reset these patterns in a very healthy way?
Well, I think first of all, it's to reframe your mistakes. They're not shortcomings, they're learning opportunities. And it's not it's learning not to be so accommodating
Mhm.
and generous with chaos around you. It's learning to set boundaries. This is one of the ways in which we connect with our sovereignty. Um, your humanity is not a weakness. Your vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a very powerful strength. But leading from your intuition, from a peacefulness, uh, good boundaries, and really self care is paramount to success for the future and also leading others because as you come from that place, that deeply connected place of resilience, you're showing others that they can also be in their resilience. Um, and resilience is how do you reset from
Mhm.
stress, you know? So
No.
taking time for really understanding that self-care is a vital role in becoming sovereign in your queendom. And in the book, there's lots of different methods and tips on how to do this. And also old ancient wisdoms too, like
Mm.
how clearing your space of negative energy, detoxing from toxic people, using the moon cycles. These are all ancient wisdoms that we can use in present day, that support us, and that wise part of you that's very intuitive, very connected, and uh, deeply vulnerable, and is very powerful in terms of leadership, because as women, we listen very well.
Absolutely. We know we sure do. I was going to ask you, tell me all of your self care tips, but you just shared so many beautiful ones. I always tell everyone that if the first step to reconnecting is to sit in silence, because we can never reconnect if we have outside noise all the time.
Right.
And so that's where the
Yeah.
rest comes as well, and the reconnection and doing things for yourself. So I think all of those are beautiful. Let's talk about the queen archetype. So, what does it truly represent beyond the Instagram version of queen energy?
Yeah. Um, your sovereign self, you know, that queen represents the divine feminine self, the strength of feminine. It also is how you think about yourself, um, how you lead your life, um, the values that you hold dear to you, your purpose, and what really motivates you in terms of your vision for freedom for yourself. Those are just some of the meanings of that stepping into your sovereign queen self.
That's lovely. So, let's talk about really reconnecting because she's in there for all of us. So, how does reconnecting with sensuality, softness, and intuition play into stepping into your queen self?
Well, I think from what I've seen, now I'm not, I don't claim to be the expert, but from what I've observed over the years, um, in that queen's, way of being raw and soft and sensual, we've often put it to one side because that sensuality, we're either too busy, we don't have time, or we got to go, go, go and do, do, do. So we put that sensual side of us to one side. And it's so important. It's such an important part of who we are because the sensuality is about smell and taste and touch and all the other areas of intimacy that
Mhm.
we know, which I write about in the book. And dancing with that femininity creates that freedom and reminds you of who you are. So, in the book, I talk about, some women still clean their own homes, including me, because they like to, or they're saving money, or whatever the reason is. But as they're doing that, so for example, I will wear high heels. I will wear my
Oh,
heels when I'm cleaning. I mean, it sounds so crazy, but what it does for me is that it's funny, and I'm also just being in my true feminine self as I'm dusting, moving objects, space clearing basically as I'm cleaning. And it feels just deeply feminine and not hard work. And so
right.
I think for women, just, wearing softer
Mhm.
fabrics, colors, having a sensual evening. It could be intimate with your partner, but it could also be friends with friends. It could be an evening of, if you drink wine, wine and chocolates. It could be um, learning something new like belly dancing,
Mhm.
just something that gets you back in touch with that sensual part of who you are rather than that masculine self that we keep chasing to be productive and be successful.
That's beautiful. So in finding your queen, and where you brought up a fun memory of me from the book. You were talking about um, believing in yourself and how when you were a child and there was a huge drought in England and you were desperate for water and you kind of looked up how to do like was it a dance? Is that what you did? You did
It's
like a rain
it was
dance?
a rain dance. It's a Native American Indian rain dance, yes.
And you're like, it poured rain that night, but you were so all in, there was nothing in your mind of doubt. You were like, I'm going to make it rain. There was no doubt. And I think that there's something so powerful, and there's so much power in all the stories that you share as well. So you blend memoir, you blend humor, emotional rewiring, neuroscience, and energy medicine all throughout the book. Can you explain how all of these pieces work together so beautifully?
Not really. I think I think it's, let me find an answer for you to help. But, okay, the reason I said that is because a lot of times when we're in the flow, like when you're in the flow of what you're
Mhm.
doing it without thinking. It's so organic. And for me, luckily, my gifts have been in all of these areas. And so when I'm in flow and I'm doing it, I don't really understand sometimes the why of it. It's just I enjoy it and it's happening. And I just know I'm supposed to be doing it. And that's what I want other women to accomplish too, just being in that flow. I've always been interested in energy, frequencies, neurosciences, things that are not clear to the invisible eye, the subtle. And so the mystique, the intuitive. And I am intuitive. They say I'm psychic. I grew up in a psychic family. It's in the book. And I think many of us are intuitive as women, but we tend to shut it down. So all of my life has really been built on understanding my psychic abilities and trying to put it into a scientific vessel so that it made sense, not only to me, but if I'm working with people. But I didn't really have to use science to justify this. But I did, and it was part of my journey. And so what I really find enjoyable is that as I'm writing, I'm sharing with women all the invisibles, all the subtles, all the ways of seeing life, the signposts that you're given if you wake up to the synchronicities of life. And there's no such thing as coincidence, but it also comes from you. It comes from you in terms of your beliefs and what you really believe to be true. I nearly took that story out about the
Oh, I
rain
loved
dance.
it.
I nearly took it out because I thought I'm going to be judged. I had that whole lack of queen thing going on in that moment, in that chapter. Um, but in that moment when I was a kid, that's when I really realized, and it did trickle through my veins like this warm treacle feeling of, oh my goodness, if you really believe something, you can make it happen. And the drought had been going on for months, and I saw this book and I decided to copy, as a young kid would,
Mm.
all the steps that these Native American Indians were doing. And I lit this pretend bonfire in the garden, and I'm chasing around it and dancing with feathers in my hair and doing a whole dance with intention, with my stick. And of course, it didn't rain when I thought it would, but it did rain overnight. And it was, who knows? But the power of intention at that point was just really validating as a young girl. And it's that power of intention that I hope that we can share with all of our younger generation, for them to believe in themselves.
No, I think it's a beautiful story, and I'm glad you didn't omit it, because I think it's such a great lesson for adults, really. I think
Okay.
a lot of us have had experiences and stories like that when we really believed in ourselves, and then somehow along the way we started doubting ourselves, and how to get back to our younger self when we really
Yeah.
believed, and to see the power in what we can do. And so I love that story so much. What is one accessible practice from the book that someone listening today can start with reconnecting with themselves?
Yeah, so there's quite a few methods in the book. And I think the easiest one to help reconnect, because I know many of us and anyone listening will say, I don't have time for this.
Mhm.
And that's why I've written the book in such a way that you can cherry pick your way through. I like the
Mm.
restoration pose, really, where you lie down on your sofa bed with about 3 or 4 cushions under your knees, and you just lie for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Your body can't go anywhere. You can do some deep breathing, listen to some music. And what happens is you're calming your nervous system so that it becomes less reactive and driven, so that you can start reconnecting with yourself. And you might find you're thinking about the day and what you need to do,
Hmm.
and just let those thoughts roll in and out. That's fine. But you're training, what you're doing is you're helping your body to understand that it's okay to take time out. Um, if you don't, your nervous system is constantly running in hypervigilance and alert stage, and it will burn out. So it's worth taking the investment of time to do this. And as you know this, you've been through this yourself, sadly, and I know that you're a great proponent for self care now. But it's a great way of just being in a few moments to do some self care, reconnection, and just notice how you're breathing. Just notice how the sofa feels as you're lying there. Just notice some things around you, the smells, the colors, the taste in your
Hmm.
mouth, things you wouldn't normally take into account because you're too busy elsewhere looking outside.
Thank you for reminding me about that restoration pose because in
Yeah.
my healing journey, I remember getting texts from you all the time. Stacey, are you in your restoration pose? And I would always forget and I would always feel so much better after doing that. So I love that. Tell us about the Queen envisioning boards. How do these help women reconnect with purpose and clarity?
Okay, so I was just about to say, actually, you must be inside my brain right now, but I was going to say, um, with envisioning boards, in the book, I talk about the self reflection. There's envisioning boards to look at, and there's spill the tea takeaways. So
Yes.
you could just look at the tea takeaways to remind yourself of what each chapter has said. Um, the envisioning board is a great way of reminding you visually and your brain to remember to do something and to dream. It might not be to do, but to dream. It could be certain
Mhm.
words that you want to put up on that board that you want to align with. Could be a beautiful beach or home that you'd like to visit, whatever you want on the envisioning board. Because the research has shown us that when you actually see something through your
Mhm.
eyes, the eyes register it as true and it goes to the brain as a truth
Mhm.
and it starts to rewire the brain to your normal. So the more you can see what it is you want to have in your life, accomplish, dream of, the brain gets used to this so that it starts setting
Mhm.
you up to believe it to be true. And then your actions go and do that. You know, you start finding yourself doing
Mhm.
things or reminding yourself to do self care, for example. And your brain says, oh, this is a new habit I'm creating. And then the new habit becomes your new deed.
Beautiful way of explaining that. I love that. I'd like to shift a little bit into boundaries because I think a lot of women struggle with boundaries. I have come a
Oh.
long way, but I still struggle with them. And I believe that boundaries are a huge part of reclaiming feminine power. So, why do you believe that so many women struggle with holding boundaries?
Well, I think it's a mixture of the upbringing that we're taught. I mean, in certain generations, not perhaps the really young ones now, but we're taught that we need to be available and loyal and basically relational and generous and perfect and this. And so the brain gets used to that training. It's not us being weak. It's the way the brain is being taught. And the
Mhm.
brain is like a piece of clay. You can shape it into anything you want. So that it comes from the early experiences of us trained to be
Mhm.
pleasers, us trained to fit
Mm.
in. Otherwise, you won't be liked. Or
Yeah.
this deep from our ancestors fear that will get thrown out
Mm.
because this is happening generationally years and years ago. If we didn't conform, we wouldn't have work, we wouldn't
Mm.
have money. So it was a very strong safety issue that was playing into this. So we are training, breaking this training has become very difficult. But the boundaries, I think now are harder for us to set because of that previous training we've had.
So, what would be one simple way for someone to start setting boundaries without feeling guilty or afraid of disappointing others?
Well, I think the easiest one is to start coming from a place of, does this meet my values? All right.
Mhm.
Is this clean? Is this reciprocal? And does this meet my values?
Mhm. That's a good question to always ask. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So there was a third one, and really, if you're involved in something that you're not sure about whether you should be involved or not, or whether you need to set a boundary with it, it's I ask this myself: does this cost my peace? My
Mm.
peace is my absolute treasure to me. I
Mhm.
will never give up my peace, and it helps me to set my boundaries a lot easier when I'm like, is this going to cost me my peace by getting involved in
Mhm.
this?
Mhm. Absolutely. That's another great
Mhm.
question to ask. I'll keep that in the back of my mind. So, you talk about the importance of being raw, flawed, and brilliant without apology. What does that actually look like in everyday life?
Yeah, it was a big topic to handle, to make it like really easy for women to like take this on board.
Mhm.
Um, the rawness is your magic, right? It's your magic, it's your essence of your really authentic self, how you express yourself, how you show up, how you accept, how authentic and transparent you can be. So your rawness would be like, let's say, being transparent, owning up to making mistakes, or, yeah, I feel like, I'm not perfect. I did this the other day and I was mortified that I did it, but it's being transparent. So that's being in your rawness. Um, in terms of owning your flaws are really the mistakes you're making it to enable you to grow. Yeah, we've got to have flaws, and they could be lack of confidence, maybe acting without thinking, um, putting off things.
Mhm.
You know, those are some flaws, and it's okay. They're part of your humanness, and it's really accepting the fact that they're there, and then how would you like to change them and grow
Mhm.
from them?
Mhm. So, how would someone begin to let go of the persona of being polished, perfect, and put together all the time?
Yeah, so that's from an inner fear and insecurity. And you can either work with a therapist or a coach, and you could um, look at what is holding me back. What is my deepest fear about letting go of this perfection? Now,
Mhm.
more than likely has come from childhood, and it's more
Mhm.
than likely come from your upbringing where you were trained to be that way. Um, let me turn this up. That's weird. So I think looking back in terms of why you might be this way and being kind to yourself, don't judge yourself. All right.
Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
worst thing that we can do.
Mhm. Absolutely. Why do you believe so many women feel disconnected from their brilliance, and how do they start reclaiming it?
I think women just don't think about it. I just think they're so caught up with everyday life that they're just not aware
Mhm.
of it, and or have a sense of perhaps humility of, well, who am I to have
Mhm.
brilliance is your blueprint of what you're here to do. It's your light. Everyone has it. Everyone deserves to connect with their brilliance, and your brilliance is your purpose.
Mhm.
It really is helps you to accomplish, stay on track, be with what your values are. And there's a whole chapter in the book about how you can discover your brilliance and the importance of purpose and the difference between the two. Um, there's some little
Mhm.
exercises there that you can follow that help you create your soul's mission statement of, why am I here? Yeah.
I love that. So, if a woman is listening right now, she's exhausted, overwhelmed, what is the first step she can take to begin finding her queen?
Well, I would encourage you to grab a copy of my book. Um, and I would encourage you to look at, thank you, the index at the front, the contents, and look at what's really most relevant to you right
Wow.
now and where you're at. And I've written it in this way so that you can cherry pick. So you could say, look at how to own your authority, being on
Mm,
your own side. You could look at, are you hiding your raw? Who are you really? And there's some things that you could pick out here from the book and work on, read, think about, and you don't have to take action immediately, but at least
mhm,
plant some seeds of
mhm,
to how you'd like to take some baby steps to making some
mhm,
changes. And it's maybe you want more confidence. Maybe you want to speak up more in situations that keep draining you. The book covers a wide range of topics that there to support you to find your queen. And it could be that you decide that queen to you means doing more self care. Well,
mm,
how do I do that? It's a whole chapter on self care. Really
mm.
decide what you want to start connecting with for your sovereign self and pinpoint that, pick one thing, and then decide on one change you'd like to work on for the next few weeks, couple of months, and stick to it. Put it on your envisioning board to remind yourself and make it a habit. And as you start making it a habit, it'll become your normal.
Well, I think you wrote Finding Your Queen at the most perfect time for so many women, including myself. What do you hope women will feel or experience after reading your book?
I just hope women will get to really redefine themselves and realign with what's important, stop the hustle, and really come into their own power.
Mhm,
Um, and still have beautiful relationships and families, you know. Um, this is not about fighting, but it's about really working within yourself to value who you are and what you bring into the world because you are
mm,
unique and you're
mhm,
important with what you share and also how you live your life and choose because the kids generations are learning from you. You are an example for
mhm.
generations. And I want to help women thrive, feel more empowered, and also relax.
And you
Relax.
helped me do that more than anyone in
Thank
my
you.
life, and I'm so blessed that you are in my life. Where can listeners find Finding Your Queen and connect with your work?
Well, thank you. You can find the book on Amazon. And there's also my other book there called Naturally Yours, which is all about teas and essential oils for self care. And then you can find me at nicolasalter.com on my website to discover more about my coaching. And I help women redefine and reinvent themselves.
Amazing. And then everyone look forward to more Nicola on February 22nd and learning more how to find your own queen. Thank you so much for being here, for being you. We need more of you in this world, that's for sure. I so adore you. Thank you so
Um,
much.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you. You take care.
You too.